Good afternoon. I'm Ashok, and I'm delighted and honored to be here. Today, we have a very interesting topic looking at the STEM part of it. And more than that, I'm very delighted to have with us a very eminent panelist who are from India as well as from abroad. So, one major aspect which comes up to our mind, STEM education and women, and looking at what's really happening not only in India, across the globe. What is very interesting is we all acknowledge the fact that women belong in all places where decisions are being made. Having said that, STEM education is very important. As a country, of course, we have been doing well, right from the primary school level, that we have this Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. It has worked well. And when you look at the Aisha report on higher education, we see that more women are actually taking up science. And in fact, there are more number of them, taking up post-graduation than even men. But having said that, when you look at the top 51 institute of repute, then the story is different. You find that it's completely dominated by men. And when I'm talking about it, I'm talking about IITs and Institute of Science and so on. You find that it's completely dominated by men. And in fact, the percentage of women in this institute of repute is in single digit. So that's an alarming factor. Again, when you look at the entire aspect of STEM education, which we call it as science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, are at the heart of technological revolution, which is actually transforming the way we live and the way we work. So it's extremely important for us to look at STEM education and STEM as far as women are concerned. And we have with us Rajendra Mehta, President and CHRO, Welspun India, Viret Mivtzari, Emerging Market Director, Startup Nation Central, Israel. And we also have Suraj Chettri, Regional Director, HR, Airbus India and South Asia. So I would like each one of you to introduce yourself and, to set the context rolling. I would like to start with Rajendra. If you can introduce yourself and the area of work, what you're doing, and how important this subject of STEM is to your organizations. Over to you, Rajendra.
Sure. Thank you, Ashok, and thank you, ET, for having us here. It's a privilege to be part of this conversation, and I think for the audience, we'll make the time more meaningful. I come with about 26 plus years of experience across sectors, whether it's tin mining, smelting, entertainment, retail, engineering, textiles, etc. So there is a plethora of cross-industry experience that I come with. And currently I head the human resources for a sectoral textile, which is, comprising of home textile business of Welspun, advanced textiles of Welspun, then flooring business of Welspun, and the domestic retail part of the business. So that's my background on what I do currently as a group CHRO. For this sector, I head the human resource function.
Thank you, Rajendra.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you.
Let's move on to our guest from abroad, Mivtzari. Over to you, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Mivtzari, Strategic Country Director at Startup Nation Central. On my background, I used to work in the Embassy of Israel in New Delhi for 3 years in my commercial department in order to help Israeli company to do business in India. And I have a privilege to live in Delhi for 3 years. And before that, I had my own business for development design product. And I also lecture for more than 16 years of technology and industry design and so I'm entrepreneur by myself for many years.
Wow, fantastic. Really nice to hear. You're part of India for 3 years and you're an entrepreneur. It's absolutely amazing. We do know that Israel has a robust entrepreneurship activity going on, and we'll hear more about it later. Over to you, Suraj.
Thank you very much, Ashok Shah. Suraj Chettri, Head Human Resources for India and South Asia. And I think my focus today, when we talk about STEM, is going to be how loosely sometimes we talk about this word, which for us denotes everything and sometimes nothing. And when we look at engineers passing out, it's very myopic. And when we only look at what we can get versus what we can give, and that's where our focus has been. Our focus has been primarily on working on the pipeline, encouraging girls to take up STEM as a career opportunity. And it's something like farming. One needs to prepare the ground well before the seeds are sown and planted. And then once the seeds are sown, you have to ensure that you take care, you take support, you nurture it so that it yields, 1,000 seeds moving forward. And that's what my experience has been. I've been in the IND global board with the CEO of the organization, and I can share a few things from my experience of what we are doing at Airbus. Over to you, Ashok sir.
Thank you, Suraj. With that, I think it will be very interesting to understand from yourself, from your aviation industry, or it could even be in the tech industry, like what are the common challenges faced by your specific line of industry, which is aviation, or it could even be in the tech, when it comes to women in STEM?
Sure, sir. If I look at being a proponent of IND myself, I strongly believe that we are, again, I would like to reiterate, we're taking a very narrow view on this aspect. Why I say so is when you look at STEM and you look at women in organizations, it's more on, gender hiring, special campaigns that you run, recruitment drives, and exclusive campus hires, which are focused on gender per se. But I think we need to look broader. And the reason why I say we need to look broader is a day will come when we will definitely have shortages of engineers, and especially women engineers, as the pipeline is getting choked. Today, we may not have that situation all over India, but it's happened in the US, it's happened in Europe, and definitely we will see this coming even into the Indian universities and colleges. And instead of hoping and praying that it never happens, I think we need to look at doing something different, something unique. And of course, just doing the same things again and again and expecting that the results would be different may not be the right thing. And I think sustainability is the focus for us currently at Airbus.
Thank you, Suraj. I would definitely echo your views that by just looking at attraction and retention alone is not enough. You got to do something for the larger ecosystem and see what exactly are we doing to nurture young talent and ensure that they sort of grow and become contributor to the economy in STEM education. Thank you very much, Suraj. So in that context, I would like to move to Mivtzari from Israel. And we do know that, you have, we would like to know from your side, basically, what representation do women have in high-tech in Israel? I think you call it as high-tech, right, in Israel, like in key position in high-tech in Israel, as well as the, the various sectors.
Okay, yeah, so I will present, and I will be in the focus of the perspective of the result of STEM. It's a woman in the high tech. So the Israeli tech industry is composed mainly of male population, 74%, with lack of representation of women, 23%, and only 3% it's ultra-Orthodox and Arabs population. This except the untapped of human potential that the high-tech industry is missing out on, and which could solve the problem of lack of engineering that we have in Israel. I can say that the founders in Israel, it's only 5% of women is the founders of the high-tech company. and 84% funding by men only. 11% it's a combination that it's at least one woman in the founders, and by comparison to the global studies, it's 20% of technology companies, and with the figure in the US, it's 28%. So you can see that in Israel, it's also not in a good situation and position. And I will let you know in a second why. But if we're looking for, as you asked, for specific sectors, so we can see that the female entrepreneurship from the angle of various sectors in the industry, it was found that the funding rate of the field of digital health is the highest and stand about 70%, food tech and fintech sector with 15 and 8% respectively.
Okay.
And one more point about CEOs, women CEOs. So women CEOs of technology companies, it's about 9%, while about 93% of all senior position in the field of human resources is held by women.
Okay. I think from the perspective of India, it's slightly better because we have almost 11% women entrepreneurs, and the C-suite position has increased drastically. At least in the tech industry, it's now hovering around 10%. So we are slightly better. But overall, you look at the labor force participation of women, then we have lost about 10% in the last 10 years or so. So obviously we got to do much more. And I'm just giving one sector, which is tech industry. And you can't be taking one industry, right? We are into many, many other industries. So we've got a lot of things to do. But certainly, I know we'll come back to you. I'm sure there's a lot of learning we can get from Israel. But before we get into that, I have that Welspun, I understand that, you have a women CEO, sir, right? And we would like to understand from your perspective as to how exactly are you nurturing women in STEM or women in your industry per se, internally in a virtual or a hybrid setup? What are the strategies to ensure that women are equally engaged in business per se?
Sure. Thanks, Ashok. I think just to be on the context again, the future innovations are inevitably transdisciplinary, which basically means that even if the medicines has to grow, or engineering has to grow, or construction industry has to grow, it has to be on the backdrop of the technology. And therefore, whether it's managing the finance, whether it's managing the space, exploration, everything has to revolve around the technology. And therefore, STEM is inevitable. And I think somewhere what has happened is the lack of focus on the engineering side, whether it is the mechanical or civil. I think people earlier perceived this to be more masculine, and therefore more male participation ended up happening here, and therefore even families pushed the thinking that the tech is more masculine, the STEM is more masculine, and therefore it's more meant for men. Similarly, I think somewhere more teachers have been from the female women's gender, and there is a general anxiety, as I understand. There's a general data or a maths anxieties that women have as a broad construct that they are in, and when they teach the women gender in schools, possibly that also leads to some anxiety that even woman kid or the child the female child gets that anxiety. And therefore, even if you look at how women have managed homes, but the home economies have been managed by men. So there'll be utensil manufacturer, that's while women uses it, but there are male dominated these sectors are. If it is about this gas related, gas stove, cooking ranges related industry, while the utility is of women, but the gender has been pushed as men, because I think they were left to managing homes and the backdrop of any leading trades. So that's where I think the whole psyche, the way I think our societal development has happened, it has happened on the backdrop of these weak biasnesses that we carried, and that's the result that we are facing now. If I have to share a data, the data basically says that even on the gender pay gaps which existed, and my understanding is that there's a 17.5% lesser value which gets paid to women, which basically means that that much of less money is coming in the economy, that much of lesser growth on the GDP is happening. So I think it's a national loss. It's a loss for the world economy when we are not pushing women to come and lead certain things. So it's not a right scenario where we currently sitting in. Fortunately for us, Dipali heads Welspun India, and she's a core proponent of empowerment, women empowerment. And fortunately for us, if you look at our data, we are 30% the women or diversity ratios we currently manage, which is, if you have to look at, it's equivalent to a Google's diversity ratio. Now, look at, and if you have to pitch against Google, Google is the largest employer of tech capabilities, and yet they are at about 30%. We are at 30%. So I think it's a intent which probably drives the inclusion. And I think we are we're trying to do more enough for the women, gender and diversity from other genders as well. So we do a lot of activities in Welspun, whether it is nurturing them for talent programs. That's one. Secondly, I think what we keep doing is we have partnered with a couple of agencies from where we ensure that there is a continued intake of such resources that we are able to generate to ensure that our pipeline of hiring is higher, and that's what we always ensure. We also have groups in our plant location where there are groups of women who lead the engagement of other women folks in the plant geographies. So they become the buffer between the management's response to any needs that they have. We have very close engagement with the hostels where we accommodate them. We do a lot of activities in terms of their nutrition, their well-being. So plethora of activities that we do with women folks, and therefore I think we're able to manage a 30% diversity ratio, that too at a plant level, which is largely a trade-led, which probably women generally would hesitate to come in. So that's where we are, Ashok.
Yeah, and absolutely fantastic. Obviously, your organization being headed by a woman, obviously we're able to attract more women. She's standing as an iconic leader, mentoring more women, and you mentioned that you have your plant which is headed by women. And I think all in all, you have your acts right, you're nurturing them, you're giving them a safe environment. And I think these are all some of these great practices by means of which you're ensuring a steady flow of women into organizations. Absolutely fantastic. Taking a clue from your point which you mentioned, I would like to move on to Suraj. See, women in STEM is a challenge. We all acknowledge, right? But women leaders in STEM is a deeper challenge. So with women leaders already, I think a CIO of Airbus is a woman. I read somewhere. So I would like to understand what are the type of impact it creates, especially in a high-tech area of aviation, and also the back-end work which you're doing in design and all those things. So any thoughts on that, Suraj?
Sure, sir. I think it's twofold. First, you'll have to ensure that you get at the grassroots level. And like we were talking a couple of days ago, we have some good programs that we run within the company itself. Some of them is UTech that we run, where we go to, the 8th standard, the 9th standard, the 7th standard schools, talk to the girls there, encourage them, get their science lab ready, DIY kits ready. We run another Airbus Little Engineers program where we encourage our own, employees' children to take up STEM as a main career opportunity. We do that even for open programs. Even when the pandemic was there, we did Young Engineers program with IISc. We do aero modeling and drone workshops so that, we get batches of girl students come in to IISc so that they can get a sense and a feel of how, things happen when they join into engineering. We also work with schools close by. We make science kits, something called the Ray Optic kit that we have made, on which you can do about 31 experiments, small stuff, 13.5-inch by 11-inch by 5.5-inch products that can be shipped anywhere. So those are the things that we do externally to attract and ensure that the pipeline is there. But when we specifically come in and we talk about our own leadership, and of course, I don't have to tell the audience, or I don't have to tell my colleagues on the panel that when you speak about women in leadership in corporate settings, that can translate definitely into increased productivity, greater innovation, better products, better decision making, high employee retention and satisfaction. And these aspects are not the phantom of my imagination. It has well been established by research, reports, and the various studies. And our experience at Airbus is also very similar. We want to see and make sure that none of the senior positions that we hire for globally goes without a final shortlist where you don't have women employees in it. So that itself ensures that we have someone that is in competition for that particular position. And to get there, it's easy to say this, but to get there, it is very challenging, because then a lot has to happen in the past years, such as identification, special talent reviews with top executives, having senior executives mentor women employees, have stretch assignments, have fast tracking, so that we can fulfill the pipeline. And even sometimes we look at positive discrimination where intervention is required, whether it's at the local or the global level. We jump in and do the same. And so these are the few aspects that we have seen. The other thing that I've also seen within my organization, and probably it might resonate with the panel also, is sometimes we see when we approach the women employees for a particular position, what I call is the I am not ready syndrome is very common. And they need to be 100% ready even before they take responsibility, unlike the men that even if they think they're 50% there, they'll apply for that. And so that's grooming, mentoring, coaching internally to ensure that, you stand a good balance as far as organization is concerned. For us, quoting numbers being pure engineering, aerospace, mechanical, and IT, we are at 24% today, but it wasn't. It was half this about 4 years ago. And with all these initiatives, we've been able to reach that level of 24%. Back to you, Ashok sir.
Thank you, Suraj. It's really very, very encouraging, because many people hearing this it's music for them, because you have already achieved 24%, while tech industry may have about 35 to 36, but then they are not necessarily all in the high-tech area which you are talking about, mechanical, design, aviation, and so on and so forth. And I'm sure, the steps which you're talking about, looking at the talent at the school level, looking at working and collaborating with academia, like we mentioned about Indian Science, all this actually goes up in creating a pool of talent, not only for Airbus, it could be for the community at large. I think it's a really, really, truly remarkable as to what, Airbus is doing in the country. Thank you very much for it, Suraj. Taking some clue from the schooling aspects, I would like to move on to our friend Mivtzari from Israel. How education in Israel supports STEM, in high school and military services?
Yeah. So actually, in a high school, we see an equal number of graduates in the STEM. It's about 49% of women, but the gap began to form in the year of military service. And as you probably know, in Israel, military service is mandatory for boys and girls for about 3 years. Everyone gets basic training. Some are even involved in developing a new technology. So at the age of 21, young people in Israel came out with technological experience and decision-making skills. And so that's the reason that we have in Israel a lot of technological know-how in the high tech, but in the military, there is no equality between the sexes. So that it's one of the problems that we start to open the gap. And also, I know that it's a new rule in India that allow women to study at the National Academy of Security. And I think I think we are in the same boat in this case, and we need to fight for a presentation of women starting in the military and continuing encourage STEM studies in a university to integrate into the high tech.
Thank you, Mivtzari. I think there's some points which I can take from your point, from your what is happening in Israel. You mentioned about that military service is compulsory, and because of that, they're going into technology. The good news is that in India too, while it is not mandated, but we are getting a lot of women in the armed forces. One of our premier institute called National Defense Academy is now getting open to women. And industry is hiring a lot of what we call them as defense veteran, and many of them are in much younger age of 35 to 45. And I'm sure we can pick some nice practices from Israel on this, because they are in the tech, they work with advanced defense equipments, right? And I'm sure we can do a lot more on ensuring that we are able to hire this lateral talent from defense forces. Thank you very much, Mivtzari. So I have a next question, which is basically moving to Rajendra. I know Welspun is spread across the various nook and corner of the country. One of the things which is really happening is the new norm is basically making remote working possible, and is actually impacting more and more women and various other people communities which are unable to travel to offices. For example, persons with locomotor disability or any disability for that matter. So the question which I have is, what is Welspun doing in this particular thing to attract more talent from, especially women talent in STEM education from tier 3, tier 4, tier 5 locations on that front? Because your plans are anyway there. So what is it that you are planning to do on that front?
Yeah, so from our point of view, we believe that work from home is a situation which is actually helping the industry to enable the women who have not been able to resume work for whatever reasons of the family needs. Now we can make a lot of these roles available to women folks across geographies. So actually, we are seeing this as a positive, opportunity for engaging the diverse workforce as part of our, the normal ways of working. So therefore, what we have started doing is that we are open to people from across geographies and remotely. So our remote working policy basically is almost saying that we don't need to people to come to office every day. It is as and when called. That's one. And for people who are locally there, they can come twice or thrice a week at the best. But that's only case basis. If the meetings have to happen. So we are ensuring that this work from home with the technology, the way we have adapted across the organization, whether it's Industry 4.0, digitization, all of this putting a lot of advantages to our opportunity that we have. A lot of automation that we have done at the plant level has also given us an opportunity for people to really work remotely. Whether AI, CCTV led AI, and those kinds of machine learning applications which we can access remotely, people can actually see work remotely and deliver on those expectations. So we are clearly seeing this as an opportunity for us, and that will help us to further improve our ratio. So we are saying, and we are following our ESG framework, where we committed a higher percentage of inclusivity on the social side that we have committed, and I think we'll live up to our commitment there. Companies completely behind that framework.
So thank you, Rajendra. I think it's more or less echoing what Suraj also mentioned about the entire aspect of sustainability also coming in.
Yeah.
And obviously you're using technology to, I would say technology is now becoming a leveler. World has become flat, and I'm very glad, Welspun is so advanced in their working and ensuring that you are able to attract talent from various locations. So taking again a clue from your point, I would like to move on to Suraj. At what stages do you think, while we understood at the entry level, we got to put in some focus around girls in schools and other things, right? But purely from, let's say, a tech industry, at what stages, at what all stages of a women's life should the tech industry play a role pertaining to STEM? That is a very interesting thing, because we look at it at the entry level is different, mid level is different, senior level is different. What levels do you think the industry should play interventions there?
Sir, I think the answer lies in the question itself. In fact, it has to be at all levels. As long as we don't reach equality in all spheres and all domains of life, not only work, but other areas too, I think at all levels, from pipelining to supporting the ecosystem, to identification, to mentoring, to support, and providing opportunities wherever it is required. So I think in a nutshell, all along the journey, till we reach a level where it is not required any longer.
Thank you. I think, yes, you're right. I think I started off by telling that women are there in all places where decisions are being made. I started off with that, and you really, answered it back by telling that you've got to make at all levels. I agree with you 100%. And I think it's a very important thing, because somewhere or other, we clearly see that the societal gender parity has a direct bearing on organization and vice versa, because, the organization do a great job. It has a rub-off effect on the society as well. So thank you very much. But I think I have an important question from our friend from Israel, Mivtzari. What do you think, basically, what should a government do in these aspects of, the overall aspects of looking at STEM education? Because you did mention where the numbers are more or less on par with India, I would say, to a very large extent. But I would like to understand from your perspective, what do you think the government should do?
What? Sorry?
What should the government do in terms of,
Yeah. Okay. So I think that the ongoing situation that we have in Israel, it's inefficient for the economy and waste a huge human resource, and mainly women, through which a shortage of technological manpower can overcome and the country's economy can grow. So most entrepreneur and senior executive come from the technological background, and this is exactly where the problem lies. As there is not enough women with relevant background, in order to solve this acute problem, it is necessary to formulate and unify a government plan, one that will address the exposure of girls and women to technological, professional, and intersections, from schooling to the trend in school, through military service, tracked to the relevant degree. In addition, of course, regulatory mechanism must be created to control the proper representation of both sexes in core of technological activities, many in Israel, but I think that it can be also relevant for India.
I want to
Thank you.
make a point here, Ashok,
Yes,
and that
please.
point is that the majority of, if you look at the hospital as a sector, now there are a lot of nurses at the ground level. It's all full of nurses, are full of women folks. But as you go up, even that industry doesn't have adequate ratio of women as participation in that whole industry. The bigger problem that we have at hand is that majority of the roles that women today are doing is prone to automation. Now, what happens if their roles get automated? Where would they go? Unless this education really as a policy framework, if it is not entrusted upon rigorously by the government and the social structures, I think we have a big problem at hand going forward.
Thank you, Rajendra, and thank you, Mivtzari. But you are absolutely right. But then, if you look at it, the government of India, as well as various other private sectors, have embarked on a big reskilling program and upskilling program. And it's just not for their organizations; it's also for the larger community. And with you mentioned about in the beginning about Industry 4.0, I would say that technology is becoming a leveler. Today, with all this telemedicine coming, the health tech is getting completely disrupted, right? Same with various other areas are getting disrupted, and women can play a bigger role because the whole aspect is they can absorb this technology very fast. At 12th standard, they can start absorbing this technology because industrialization is going to happen. Which you pointed out that many of them are doing the regular manual work, but the whole aspect is automation is going to set in, no doubt. But women will be a bigger contributor to that because they're going to learn it faster because they are young. India is a very young country. Yeah. They're going to learn fast. The only aspect is we got to do reskilling. The government has started an initiative of reskilling, and a lot of private sectors like Airbus is already doing, you are doing, many other organizations are doing today. Yeah. I think, according to me, it's going to be a bright future because the steps are there, the policies are there, already there, which I mentioned about already, girl educations. And recently I saw in entrepreneurship too, a lot of steps have been taken to encourage more and more women. But I think what is important is, as you all mentioned, it's the academia, it's the industry and the government all joining hands together to ensure that we are making an inclusive country. I think we are almost at the end of the hour. I have just one last question for all of you. And that is a common question. And I would like to start with Mivtzari. That is, as a leader, what is your affirmative action towards strengthening women in STEM?
So, actually, I recommend to hear me today, be brave and always tell yourself you're capable, and also know how to say it loud. Do not afraid, challenge yourself. That is the way to grow and succeed.
Thank you. Be brave, challenge yourself, and that's the way to grow. Fantastic. Rajendra, from your perspective, sir?
I think, in any society, people have dominated it by being fearless. Whether it is men in, the northern side of India, whenever there's a fearlessness and you approach your opportunities without any apprehensions or fears, I think that's the way to succeed. And therefore, I would suggest that every gender, women folks for sure, has to be fearless with respect to really taking up lead and then moving forward.
Thank you. It's a very important point, being fearless. Yes, Suraj?
I think, sir, I have a different spin to this, and we've talked about what the country could do, what the nation could do, what organizations could do. But for one, I believe that it's the influence that we as individuals can make. And if all of us do that extra bit, where I commit to being an ambassador for championing this very cause myself in all my capabilities. And to give you an example, I can share a personal example saying, say, for example, I've encouraged both my daughters to adapt to the STEM stream, and both are in the STEM stream. One is in her medical profession, and the younger one even though she did not have any interest in engineering, is doing aerospace engineering today. And I think if we do a small bit itself, I think it'll accumulate to be a large effort that we can make as individuals towards the society.
Thank you, Suraj. I think it's a very a point, well taken. I think as we have to be the force of influence for others, and we got to start as a role model, and you as a father have already proven that. And I would say that it's been an amazing, discussions. I know that we are already at the end of the hour, we can go on. But to your last point, I would like to, sum it up by saying that STEM education is extremely important. Organizations are doing the bit, government is doing the bit too. I think together, all of us can make a difference to the STEM education in India. And I would like to also end up by saying that any society that fails to harness the energy and creativity of its women is at a huge disadvantage in the modern world. So having said that, we are on the right path. Be it Israel or be it India, all of us are, we are working towards that common goal. World is flat, and I'm sure we can exchange a lot of ideas and thoughts as we go forward. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for the Economic Times for having invited me as a moderator and to moderate a panel, with such leaders like Rajendra, Suraj, and Mivtzari. Thank you very much. Over to you, Neetu.
Thank you very much, sir.
So very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ashok. Thanks, Suraj.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Ashok Pamidi, for moderating this session, for chairing this panel discussion. And like you mentioned, it's really all the stakeholders coming together, the government, the organizations, people coming together to create that change, to really enable, empower, and engage women to do more and better in STEM fields. So once again, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for joining us. Mr. Rajendra Mehta, thank you for sharing with us what you at your organization are doing, how you are mentoring and bringing about more programs. Thank you, Ms. Mivtzari, for sharing with us how Israel is taking a lead now and trying to change things in those numbers. Really wishing you all the very best. And Mr. Suraj Chettri for sharing your views with us, wishing your daughters all the very best. And like we mentioned before, that you are an inspiration for them. And thank you for sharing this personal information with us and our viewers. Once again, as I thank our panel for joining us, let me take a moment and thank our partners as well for their support before we bring to you our closing address. I'd like to thank our strategic partner, KPMG Global Services, our diversity partner, Welspun India, our home textiles. Let me also thank our industry partner, Henkel, our associate partner, Nomura Capital India, our associate partner, GSW Steel. Let me also thank our associate partner, Kone Elevators India. And of course, the summit has been brought to you by ET Edge Unwired. So a lot more. Let's hear from yet another leader presenting the closing address on empowered opportunities for cohesive inclusion and diversity is Ms. Neerja Birla, founder and chairperson, Aditya Birla Education Trust. Let's hear her.